What does liquid metal do better than anyone else?
Oh, that's a good question. Vibe coding, I mean, obviously.
Okay, it's the vibe coding backend. Okay.
All right. I have a presentation for you guys first, and then I have hopefully a demo, but my Wi-Fi just stopped working 5 minutes prior to this event, so we'll see if it works or not, and otherwise I'm just going to talk the time full, and you just have to listen to me. So.
Okay, cool. Well, let's all welcome Fokke to the stage.
All right. So the title of the presentation is Break Through the Vibe Coding Backend Wall. And I want to start out with a couple questions for you guys. I hope this is readable. It's kind of small. How many of you guys consider yourself vibe coders here? And I'm going to consider you a vibe coder if you open Claude Code and you're like, hey, build me this. I'm going to consider you a vibe coder even if you consider yourself an engineer. A lot of people think it's a kind of a bad word. I disagree. But and how many of you guys are using Claude Code or Gemini CLI or Microsoft Copilot, mostly CLI-based? Cursor? A lot more people. We don't integrate with Cursor, so I'm not talking to you guys. Not yet. They have some limitations. So how many of you guys are familiar with, vibe coding something together and then getting to the back end and it kind of just hits a wall, falls apart, or you're trying to deploy your application and it's all just kind of, turns out it was spaghetti code and none of it works and you're in sort of like development hell. See a couple people's nodding? Okay. Well, this talk is for the vibe coders in the room, but also for anybody who just wants to really quickly ship applications. Another question that's not on the slide. How many of you guys are building a startup here? All right, a lot of people. What's the most important thing for startups? Okay, that one too. Velocity, somewhere on there? Revenue. Pre-revenue. That's a pure play. I don't know. All right, velocity is really important. So if you want to ship things really quickly, that's one of the things we're trying to help you with. So how do we do that? Well, so we developed a framework specifically designed for coding agents. So most frameworks, and again, it's a little small, but most frameworks are built for humans. And most humans, or software engineers, hate opinionated frameworks. How many of you like opinionated frameworks? Oh, okay. How many don't like them? One? Okay. So opinionated frameworks, the reason that I've heard at least that most people don't like them is that they kind of constrain you in what you can do. And that's generally not something you want to do when you're building an application. It is, however, something you want to do when you're building with AI, because constraints is another word for guardrails. And if you let your AI just kind of run wild, it's going to make up a bunch of shit, and it's going to make up a bunch of things, and it might work or it might not work. And so what we designed is a framework specifically purpose-built for AI coding assistants. And what it has is a complete versioning of your compute and data stack. And so I don't know if many of you guys have seen, I forgot what the tool was, but somebody was building with AI and it deleted their production database. And they were like, what the, right? No longer a problem. Your complete compute and data stack is versioned. And so you can let your AI experiment freely and then roll back if something goes wrong. But it also means that your AI is actually working on production data. And so if it works on your vibe coded version, it also works on the live version because they are the same. The other thing it has is that it has full observability. And so every interaction with any data source, like that be like a SQL database or a vector database or an AI model, is fully logged. And it's logged to the version level of the application, which means that the AI can actually see what's going on. So if something's broken and you go to Claude Code and you say like, hey, it doesn't work, it actually has the full visibility to go figure out why it doesn't work, fix it, redeploy your application, and get it to a working state. And then lastly, it has an AI annotation system. And so that means that the AI itself, like Claude Code or Gemini CLI, can annotate anything inside of your application. So if you have a SQL database, it can leave like a little breadcrumb for itself explaining what that SQL database is for. So the next time your AI assistant comes around and wants to build something new on top of it, it actually understands why it architected it like that in the first place. And so that's our framework. The framework itself deploys on our own platform. And so our platform is fully stacked. We have vector databases, SQL databases, stateful, stateless compute, basically anything you need for a scalable backend infrastructure. And so with the framework, the AI has access to all of that and can build on top of all of that. So one of the other things that is part of the framework itself is what we call AI native building blocks. And so if you're going to build with an AI coding assistant and you let it figure something out from scratch, chances are you're going to just end up in La La Land and it's not going to work at all, right? A state-of-the-art RAG pipeline still is a complex application. I know you can get a little vector database and you can spin something up real quickly, but that's not going to hold up in production, right? You're going to need a graph database, a vector database. You're going to need the ability to, transcribe text, images, audio, video, all those kind of things. And so what we build inside of our framework is effectively these Lego blocks that the AI framework or the AI agent can grab and can start kind of building an application on top of. And so if you want to build, say, an AI agent, which a lot of people are, I think there were 20 or so in the room, you can grab smart memory, smart buckets, and smart SQL, and you'll have 80% of the complex stuff that your agent needs already there. And so that's all built inside of the framework itself. So how do you build with it? Well, all you got to do is install our CLI tool, and then run either, depending on whether or not you're a Claude Code user or Gemini user, you run Raindrop MCP install Claude. And what that will do is that it will install our MCP server for whichever coding agent you're using. And that will include, it's effectively a state machine, like an agent inside of an agent that will guide your Claude Code or your Gemini CLI in building on top of our framework. And so it has all the documentation built in, but it also has the full development lifecycle built in so that you can, start doing test-driven development, which is one of the things you really want to do when you're building with an AI. And it will effectively go from hey, I want to build this thing, to I've deployed it, it's live, and here's the URL, and you can start using it. And I'll show you in the next slide what that actually means, because there's quite a lot going on there. So when you add this is what you get. So this is the state machine that we're effectively adding to your coding agent. And again, I hope my demo will work, because otherwise I'm out of slides in 3 minutes. So, but you'll show up, you'll call new Raindrop app with the MCP server. And what that does is that it calls our MCP server, and then the MCP server will send back a list of detailed instructions to the coding agent. So it'll be hey, you got to go, leave a little breadcrumb for yourself, which session we're in. You got to go set up a new project. You might want to invite team members. And then eventually you'll get to the PRD step, the product requirements document. And that's where it will go back and forth with you to really understand what you're trying to build, right? So you'll show up and you'll say hey, I want to build a to-do app. I want natural language search in there. It needs to have, an API endpoint for create, update, and delete. And then it will search all of our documentation. It will search our architectural diagrams to really understand how to build that on top of the framework. And then it will design that for you. And so it will give you a really detailed PRD that will explain what it's about to build. And this is sort of one of the last steps that you really have to pay attention, because after this, you're just going to say hey, go build that for me. And when you do, we're going to start this test-driven development cycle. And so this is a key component to being effective with AI, is not just have it write code, because otherwise you'll end up in a situation where it's hey, there was a bug, I deleted all the code, the bug is no longer there, functionality is also gone. But technically it's true. There's a lot of references here to Silicon Valley, by the way, if you've seen that show. But anyway. Yeah, so it gets into that test-driven development cycle, right? So it'll go from writing test first, then writing code, then making sure, or refactoring that code, making sure that the test works, and kind of doing that in a loop. It's like the first agentic loop from an agent inside of your agent. It gets a little meta, but you get the picture, right? And so once that's done, once it's happy with the code that it created, it will go and deploy your application. And then it will actually write an API endpoint test. So it will look at all the APIs that it just created, It will call those. It will simultaneously look at those log files that we're taking and tracking inside of the platform. And so it will see like every database interaction going on and every bug or every log line that you left in there. And so it's also instructed actually to preemptively put a whole bunch of logging in there so that we can understand what's going on, right? So by the point you get to the deployed application, it won't initially work, right? Most AIs don't one-shot 50 API endpoints. Anybody who says they do is, either a genius or lying to you, and I think it's the latter. And then it will go back into the development cycle, right? And this is where you go create a new version and go test whether or not that version is better. And it will run the same API endpoint test in the end. It will be like, hey, we're 80% better, or we're like 30% better. Right. So that's the MCP. This is where I would normally go into my demo and show you guys what that actually looks like. So we're going to go see if I have any internet here or not.
And if you don't, we can try to tether to my phone.
I tried that on mine. Honestly, it updated to that new Apple version, and it just messed things up.
Oh. You guys saw that, right? I didn't realize.
Oh. No, I didn't.
Such a good demo.
I've worked in San Francisco for a year, and I never felt an earthquake. And I'm not sure if there just weren't any, or if I'm just, well, apparently I just don't notice. But all right, let's go see if we have any. I think it's my computer. So, yeah, it doesn't work. But I have something that might save it. It's going to be a bit lame, but we'll make it work. No, I tried earlier. Yeah, it's okay. So we're going to scroll back in my terminal history and just look at the thing as it was working earlier, because it will get us to the point where we actually write the PRD, and then I'll just have a bunch of time for questions, and I'll have my QR codes on there for like 5 minutes, so you guys can all get your phones out and stuff. Right, so when you start a new session with Claude, Claude Code is my preferred AI agent here. You basically just tell it like, hey, new Raindrop app is a / command that's automatically installed for you. And then it will first read Claude MD, its regular rules. And then it will start the actual flow. And it will ask you whether or not you want to invite any team members to the project. And so we designed this to be multiplayer from day one. And so if you want to co-work something, we actually dog food our own stuff, and we use our own agent memory inside of our MCP to maintain the context. So you can actually co-work it with multiple people. In this case, it's just me. And so I'm going to tell it, like, I want to build a to-do application, backend API that allows me to add new to-dos, delete to-dos, and search them with natural language. And then I want to use a smart bucket for, I see this is one of the older ones, actually. Let me see if I have a newer. Okay, well, half the PRD is cut off, but you'll see that it will start to kind of look at like what actually needs to happen, and it will understand like, okay, I got to do a service that's a public REST API. I'm going to have like a smart bucket, which is one of our building blocks for natural language search, and it will start to define the API that's going to build. This one is sort of half cut off, so you don't quite see it here, but what it actually will do is that it will design a application with a model view controller architecture and really like specify exactly how Claude Code needs to build that for you. And so we realized that over time that most people suck at context management with AIs. I do too, I'm just lazy. And you end up being like, no, you jerk, it's got to be whatever, right? So what we do with this MCP is that we effectively take that context management away from you so that you can focus on what you want to build rather than how to build it for you. Again, I would show you, but my Wi-Fi doesn't work, so I'm just going to go to my last slide here and show you guys the QR codes. So if you want to sign up for the platform itself, you can use 1 month free, and you'll get the first month on us. That includes a bunch of infrastructure. Actually, don't tell anybody. I think we haven't really fully instrumented billing yet, so. And then also, yeah, we're going to be there on Friday, and we're also going to be there on Saturday. So the Code with AI hackathon, if you want to try this, and we'll have a couple of our engineers local. So if you want to like have questions or anything you want to try, hopefully my Wi-Fi will work again then, so I can show it off for real. And we're also going to be there on Saturday. We're hosting a hackathon together with Samba Nova AI. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with them. They do that super fast inference, like 1,200 tokens per second. And at both hackathons, actually, we got a prize, which is awesome. It's a WWE-style wrestling belt that you can win for the first place, and $10,000 in credits. But I think you want to be there for the belt. And we still have some spots left. So if you want to sign up for either the hackathon or you want to sign up for the product, then use those QR codes. And I think there's also a video on our website. If you actually were interested to see the demo, then you can see it there. And I still have 4 minutes left, so if you guys have any questions, I'm more than happy to take them.
Was Raindrop Claude Code originally?
Parts of it, yeah, for sure.
Could Raindrop essentially build Raindrop?
Yeah, I think you theoretically could. Whether or not you should is a different question. I think there's some things internally, that might not entirely work. So the infrastructure we run on is actually Cloudflare. So one of the really cool things is that if you vibe code your app and like you have an MVP, it actually scales and is ready to serve tens of thousands of users. There is some intricacies there that I don't think would quite work, because honestly, making them work with real-life engineers was a pain in the ass. So I don't know if that would work with vibe coded, but you'll get close, for sure.
Quick question. You said it doesn't work with Cursor. What if, silly question, but if I put Claude Code within Cursor, it should work, right?
That's right.
Okay.
Well, yes. Yeah, Claude Code inside a Cursor would work. The reason it doesn't work in Cursor, and I don't know if there's anybody from the Cursor team here, but they really need to implement sub-agents. So one of the ways that we can actually manage context very well is by using sub-agents, because sub-agents have a separated context window from the main model. And that means that if we start and kill a sub-agent, we can start and clear the context window. And so we can do all the building inside of a sub-agent rather than in the main context. And Cursor doesn't have that for whatever reason.
Hi, Marcus here. I'm just wondering how these backends built by your agents interoperate with existing backends. So say I have like 24 services running somewhere. How do I get started with?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we're an opinionated framework, and so we are going to be completely different to whatever you already have. It's best for like greenfield applications. You can, show up with an existing service and, let Claude Code kind of analyze it and be like, hey, rebuild this for me on Raindrop, right? If you say like, hey, I love what this is doing, but I don't want to maintain my other 2 services or 3 services or whatever and have them rebuild it. But we won't be able to like integrate with like AWS or GCP or whatever. Like we're like, we host the whole platform for you. We host the framework. And so you'd have to either rebuild or put part of your services on us and part of the services somewhere else. We can obviously, interact with external services. There's actually, during the PRD creation, Claude will ask you about external services and what needs to be integrated, and that will be part of the PRD. But yeah, there's definitely a separation there, for sure. Yeah.
After using Raindrop, what is your new bottleneck in your engineering work?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think it's gonna be a stupid answer, but like communication is still like hard, right? So getting to a central source of like truth of like what we actually want to build is still quite complex. We actually, inside our company, we're 100% like AI native, and so a lot of our like even PRD creations like internally go through Claude, not necessarily through Raindrop, but through Claude. So yeah, I think like getting that shared understanding, and honestly, you know, it's not really an engineering challenge anymore. Like I work on the go-to-market side. That's why I'm here. You know, our end of the company got shut up just like everything else got when AI was launched. Like all the old tactics that you used to do, right, don't work anymore. So I wish there was a tool for that, but unfortunately, we just have to, you know, show up and do the job. So. Yeah.
After you built your original application with Raindrop, how could you go about improving? What's the steps to improve it?
Yeah.
Individual level. So you want to change this part, you want to change the API.
Right.
How do you interact with the later?
Yeah, the flow I showed was just like the new application flow. There's actually like separate entry points inside of the state machine. So you can go in for updating an application, or you can go in for like debugging, like, because sometimes like your API endpoint tests, they work, but then, you know, you got a edge case from a user, right? And so sometimes you want to just tell Claude, and this is how it works, right? You show up, you'll be like, hey, my app's broken, fix it. It will automatically trigger that entry point, start looking at the logs, you know, start understanding what's going on, and start fixing your application based on those edge cases. But yeah, there's different entry points there. I think it's the timer stopped. But
We can finish it out if
Yeah.
there's any other questions.
I think one more. I'll take one more.
All right, one last question.
Yeah, so how is Raindrop with working, say you've got an established protocol you want to work with, like, you know, a multi-agent architecture, and I need to communicate using A to A. You know, can it go out and, you know, grab the details of that protocol and then, you know, implement that?
Yeah, I mean, depends a little bit on the protocol itself. It needs to be supported, obviously, by the backend infrastructure that we spin up. But you know, yeah, you provide that during the PRD step, and then you could do that. Now, we also include an architecture step, right? And so, for example, for like writing multi-agent infrastructure, we have a preferred way of scaling that with queues and with, you know, serverless functions and stateful workers and how that all works. So as a user, you could effectively just say like, build me a multi-agent whatever, and then we would have that internally. But we could technically do all that if that's your preferred way of working, for sure. Yeah. All right. Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you. Let's hear it for Liquid Metal.